Hello and welcome to ChooseFI and welcome to episode 500. It's incredible. We've been doing this for 7.5 years at this point. And interestingly, we've actually published over 660 episodes because way back in the day, we used to do the roundup episodes. But 500 is a nice round number and it has a nice ring to it. And I thought that this would be a perfect time to redo our episode 100, which was really our welcome to the FI community, where we send people when they were getting started, or honestly, people who are just looking for a refresh, people who are looking to start over with FI and maybe get reacquainted with the main background of what we're doing here. So I think this is going to be a good one. And thank you for supporting the ChooseFI community. And together, we're creating what we call the ultimate crowdsourced personal finance show. Thanks for being here. Welcome to ChooseFI. All right. So, like I said, this is episode 500. And just to introduce myself, which I realize I don't do very often, I am Brad Barrett. I am now the solo host of ChooseFI. I'm the co founder. My other founder, Jonathan Mendonça, was with me for well over 500 episodes here on the podcast. We're still great friends, business partners, all that stuff. So he is here with us in spirit. And it's fun actually going back and listening to some of the old episodes because we were certainly a yin and yang where he was the much more excitable version and I was, the more calm, sedate one who tried to provide some wisdom. So I'm going to maybe channel my inner Jonathan here today a little bit. So yeah, I guess to give a little background on me, I was a CPA. So I went to college, I got an accounting degree, I went to work for one of the big firms. And this is now a historical event. But in 2001, I went to work for Arthur Andersen. And basically 9 months later, that company didn't exist because of the Enron scandal. And that made me realize just how impermanent your job could be, even if it is what everyone says you should aspire to. And I mean, I did great in school. I got this wonderful job, and the entire company did not exist 9 months later. For a 22, 23-year-old kid, that is a real shock to the system. And it was really at that moment that my FI journey was born, even though it far, far, far preceded the modern financial independence, or certainly the FIRE movement, as it was called, pre-ChooseFI. But it gave me that shock. And it made me realize that nobody's coming to save me. There's always going to be some potential issue. And I needed to wrest control of my life from being at the whim of the winds, in essence, or right? Like things going wrong. And the biggest way that I could do that, I realized, was by saving money and by not being beholden to a job. Because everybody else I knew, no matter how much money they made, they needed their job essentially every second of their life until they got Social Security at 62 years old. What kind of life is that? Is that what you really aspired to when you were a kid? Did you say, hey, I'm going to graduate college at 22 and work every second in stress that I don't get fired for the next 40 years? It just makes no sense. And I just thought there had to be a better way. And in my naive luck, I realized, okay, well, I think one of the best ways that I can do this is by saving money. And it's interesting that really has become the bedrock of my entire adult financial life and really this financial independence movement. And it's taking control. It's trying to realize that you can achieve freedom and you can achieve autonomy in your life to actually focus on the things that you want in life, to spend your most precious resource, your time, doing the things that you want with the people that you want to spend it with. That is truly the ultimate luxury. And what's so interesting, I think our, like I call it, this is ChooseFI for financial independence. And I think ChooseFI has really helped galvanize the financial independence movement worldwide. But before that, it was known as the FIRE movement, which you have to admit has a certain ring to it, right? And for a very long time, we even included that in Jonathan's sign off at the end of every episode, which was the fire is spreading. And like I said, it has a nice ring to it, but I think so many people used it as a punching bag because it's financial independence, retire early, right? So people would make memes out of it, or, oh, look at those lazy people just looking to retire as quickly as they can and sit on the couch or sit on a beach somewhere and do nothing. And honestly, nothing could be further from the truth. And that old caricature we have tried so hard to kill. We really have. And of course, people for their clickbait and whatnot, attention, of course, want to draw attention to it. But that's what's so beautiful about what we built here and what you have built, our community, is something really powerful. We've built a group of people who are taking action in their lives and taking little actions every single day to make their lives better. And other people can look from the outside and say, oh, you're depriving yourselves. Oh, the fire movement, this, the fire movement, that, whatever. Don't you want to just live a little? Come on, it's YOLO, right? And instead turning it around and saying, wait a second, you're talking about buying like fancy cars or wasting it on this or that when I'm actually talking about spending my money. If you want to reframe it, instead of deprivation, you're not saving your money for nothing just to be frugal or a miser. You're saving it for the most important thing in the entire world, your time. Your time, right? Like when you think about a savings rate, think about it buying back years of your life. Not that you're depriving yourself, not that it's some short termism like a financial diet, because we all know how well those work. They really don't work that well at all. And you're eventually going to yo yo and you're going to spend it all in all likelihood. But we think long term in the financial independence community. We look in terms of decades and how can we live the best lives that we want to design? Not that somebody else decides, not that society decides, but how we want to spend it. And it really does start with having that savings rate. And for many of us, we come into the FI community, whether you're coming in at 22 or at 50 or 62. It doesn't matter. It's never too late to make your life better. I think that's one of the critical concepts here is, yeah, you can beat yourself up all you want about past mistakes, and we all have them. And believe me, I have plenty. But where does that get you? How does that actually serve your life to beat yourself up about past mistakes? You can't fix them. You can't go back in time and undo them. So, what can you do? You can make your life better starting today. And you can be honest with yourself about your personal finances starting today. And that's really empowering. And I think you're going to hear me say that word a lot of times, empowering, because that's what makes financial independence and the certain brand of financial independence that we espouse here at ChooseFI so powerful, because you actually gain control of your life one little decision at a time. And another cool thing about FI is there's a whole list to channel Jonathan, my old co-host, of levers that you can pull, right? There are all these different things you can do to make your life better with your personal finances, with everything really. And it's actually a holistic strategy to make your life better. But let's just talk about personal finances. You could do something dramatic like I did, which was move from a high cost of living area. In my case, it was Long Island, New York, down to Richmond, Virginia, which at the time in 2006 was really a very low cost of living area. And that was a dramatic change. But that certainly set the stage for everything that came later for me. But did we need to do that? No, of course not. There were plenty of decisions that we could have made. Obviously, that supercharged it. But for us, driving old cars was another major difference, right? Instead of at that point having $200 or $300 a month car payments, which now is that's quaint, right? It's probably $500 to $700 per car. We drove old cars, and every month we're able to stock away hundreds of dollars and funnel that into investments and have that money working for us to little things like, okay, instead of having a fancy cell phone carrier at $100 a month, I've had Republic Wireless and now Mint Mobile for the last easily 10 plus years. That's probably, certainly at the outset, that was a $100 per month decision. And another thing we focus on here is the little things are the big things in life. Okay. So we'll get into our FI number calculation and what it actually means to be financially independent. But basically every $100 that you can save per month in recurring costs that you lower in expenses. So in my case, the cell phone is $30,000 less you need in your pot of money to reach financial independence. Hear that again. Every $100 a month. So for me, it was just having Mint Mobile instead of T-Mobile, which is essentially the same company, right? Mint Mobile's using T-Mobile's service. So it affected me zero. And that one decision means $30,000 less I need to reach financial independence. Now, multiply that, right? Think about, okay, instead of eating out 10 times a month, I'm not going to deprive myself and go all the way down to zero. But what if I only ate out 7 times a month? Even at $30 a time, which is laughably small, that's another $100 saved, basically. And that's another $30,000 less you need to reach financial independence. You see how the little things can become the big things. And honestly, it's a fun game. It's a fun game to be living the same middle class lifestyle as everybody else around you, or even upper middle class in my case, but getting wildly wealthy at the same time just by being smart, just by understanding the rules of life, the rules of personal finance. There's no secrets. That's the cool thing. There's no guy behind the guy rules that you need some inner sanctum pass to. It's actually really straightforward. That's the cool thing. Like, we're not trying to sell you anything here. In fact, we go so far out of our way to not make money. We have probably had over 60 million downloads on this podcast. And we essentially have had $0 in advertisement, except for a very short time during COVID when it was absolutely necessary. And I bring that up to highlight that all I care about is that you trust and respect what I'm saying. I'm not trying to sell you anything. There's no secret course. There's nothing. It's actually about simplicity. That's one of the through lines of my life is not paying fees and just craving simplicity. And I think that is really the hallmark of a financially independent life is building a personal finance life that just works on autopilot, that everything works. And for me, it's stress mitigation. So I'm not trying to ultra optimize everything. In fact, I leave an extra $5,000 or $10,000 in my checking account every month that could be earning interest or compounding in the market. But because I want it there to not have to worry about, oh, is this bill coming out on the 17th or is that bill coming out on the 22nd? I don't want to think about that ever, 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 ever. I just want my life to work simply. And I think that's what's cool is when you build this life where there's not really that much going on. I put everything on my credit cards. Travel rewards are a big aspect of what we talk about here at ChooseFI. And you can always find that info at choosefi.com/travel. And it's a way that I can travel the world for nearly free using rewards points that I get for being smart with my personal finances, which is just this wonderful virtuous circle, right? So again, I put all of my expenses every month on my credit card. Of course, I have my credit card on auto pay every single month. And it just all works. It works seamlessly. I have automatic transfers set up to max out my retirement accounts and to put money into my regular brokerage account or wherever that I see fit. And that again is just the way that I crave. But this really is a choose your own adventure because a lot of people in financial independence, they actually want to get into the nitty gritty and maximize everything. And that's great. You can do you ultimately. I'm not here to speak from on high as some expert of what works for you on your FI journey. I think really the critical part is that you take action and you will hear that over and over and over again. All that I care about every single episode that we produce is that there's some actionable takeaway, even if it's an episode that you would otherwise maybe write off as, oh, that doesn't pertain to me. I think honestly, every episode, there's some gem, at least one, at minimum, one gem that you can take away that will make your life better. And I think that's one of the things that I'm proudest of over this 7.5 year journey of 650 plus episodes is that this really builds on itself. I've went back and started listening to our older episodes and they still stand up today. So if you're finding this now in 2024 or beyond, you really can go back to episode 1 and start over and see all of these little things, all of these little life hacks, all of these stories, all of these interesting perspectives from our guests and our community members. Because, like I said before, we've always dubbed this the ultimate crowdsourced personal finance show. And that was a grandiose thing that Jonathan came up with that I love. And it's because this is about you, our community. Jonathan and I were always here to shepherd and to curate and to synthesize. And I think we've been really, really good at that. And make this easy, make it believable that you can do this. Because you want to know why? You can do this. Like I said, it doesn't matter where you're coming from, where you're starting, what age you're starting. It is never too late to make your life better. Hard stop, end of story. And you need to believe that, okay? Because, yeah, is the journey to FI going to be as easy for someone making $30,000 as for a physician who's making $600,000 a year? No, obviously it's not going to be as easy. But for most people, regardless of income, they are spending all of their money every month. So in essence, they have no net worth. They might even have a negative net worth, regardless of their income. So for most people, getting that first $5,000 or $10,000 saved up is the difference between them being on that knife's edge, and certainly the knife's edge of stress constantly. Because what's the biggest stressor in people's lives? It's money. Plain and simple, it's money. But what if you take action starting today? What if you take action to make your life better? And over the course of the next 6 to 12 months, you have $5,000 to $10,000 saved up, even if it's 1 or 2,000. Is your life going to be better? I think that's the easiest question in the world. Of course it is. Of course it is. When you are not living paycheck to paycheck, when you have a couple grand saved up, and every little emergency in life is not really an emergency anymore because you can pay for it. You don't have to frantically search out for $500 or $1,000. You have it. Okay. So that's the first step, is getting some solvency, right? Is just trying to get to that point where every single thing in your financial life is not a stress. And I think you can go from there, obviously, to getting to the point where work is optional. And this is what the old FIRE acronym, Financial Independence, Retire Early, was really predicated upon. But I think you can take out that distraction of the retire early and just say, okay, look, when I get to financial independence, I can do whatever I want for the rest of my life. And I mean, if you're not enthused by that, I can't imagine what would get you excited. I really genuinely can't. And so to talk about what is a FI number, right? So I've mentioned that previously and said we'd come back to it. I think at its very essence, 25 times your annual expenses is the most obvious way to define what financial independence is historically. Now, of course, there is nuance to everything, but I think using this as your North Star, as just something to shoot for, gives you great certainty, interestingly enough, even though it's not a precise number. And I think you can get into the precision if you want. But even frankly, myself, like, I don't stress about that. I really don't. And I never have. There are people, again, who have their FI number calculated down to the dollar and have their FI date out into precise days of when it's going to be in 2037. Hey, again, you do you if that's your thing. Not really my thing, but everyone has to approach this how they want to. So, anyway, let's start with the most important thing, which is you need to calculate your annual expenses. Okay. So, I talked a minute ago about the first thing being getting that first $1,000 or $2,000 saved up. And I think that's the first thing in terms of stress mitigation. But if I were to tell someone, okay, look, how do you get started with FI? What's the action you can take today? It would be to sit down, maybe for the very first time in your entire adult life, and be honest about your personal finances. Okay. Again, we're not beating ourselves up about past mistakes. They are what they are. There's nothing we can do about it. But today, you sit down and you take an hour or two, maybe, and you could do it with paper, you can do it with Excel or whatever, Google spreadsheets, whatever you want. And you need to write down, all right, what are my assets? So you just go into every account you have, and it might not be that many accounts right now. And you just literally write down the balance today. Okay. Then you look for every liability that you have. So think debt, right? So you write down your credit card balance, you write down your mortgage. So obviously then your assets, you would put your house, like the rough market value on the assets if you're going to put the the mortgage as a liability, but student loans, you would put down any kind of other debts you might have, medical or tax or whatever it may be, couch payments, as Jonathan always like to joke, and you just list them. So I'm a CPA. This is second nature to me, but it's really not that hard, right? It's just you take all of your assets and then you subtract out all of your liabilities. If that's a positive number, then you have a positive net worth. If it's a negative number, you have a negative net worth. And like I said, it is what it is. And you can get into specifics if you want. Like you could put, I don't know, the market value of your cars or something if you have car loans that you're putting as liabilities. I don't usually get into that kind of detail. I don't think it's that important. I would put like your financial assets and certainly your house and any, if you have rental properties or something like that, I would put that as well. But this is just to get a real rough number. Okay. So that's basically, hey, what am I worth? And then you need to get a sense of, all right, what's my income coming in every month? Or if you have unreliable income or you're a contractor or some such, every year, basically. And then figure out what does your life cost? And really, that's maybe the most important one is, all right, what are my annual expenses? And it's going to be pretty hard to figure out 12 months of this, but start with a month or two and get a sense of, all right, what does my life cost roughly every month? You can multiply that by 12 and maybe add some because there are always going to be certain things that pop up, certainly during the holidays or just here or there, and get a rough sense of what does my life cost. Okay. So our FI number is calculated off of these annual expenses. And very simply, we just take our annual expenses and multiply by 25. Okay. And that gets us our FI number. So how this works, let's say your expenses are $40,000 a year. So 40,000 times 25 is $1 million. When you reach $1 million in liquid net worth, you have reached financial independence. That's really it. And that's what's so cool about this. You're not beholden to somebody like Susie Orman who screams and yells about, hey, you need $10 million or more to ever be able to retire if you're lucky because of whatever. She makes stuff up, healthcare or this or that. Like $10 million? Really? Like based on what, Susie? And the answer is nothing. It's just fear mongering. But the cool thing is you can control this. And that's another theme at ChooseFI is control what you can control. You can control your life expenses. And really, your entire financial independence number is based on your annual expenses. That's it. And like I said, there's some nuance. If you wanted to be ultra, ultra, ultra conservative, you could multiply by 33 and make that your FI number. I think that's frankly way too high because I think most of us are being conservative as it is. But again, it gives you something to shoot for as opposed to just some made up fantasy numbers by someone in the media. And more or less how this works, you might have heard of the 4% rule, which we don't love the word rule in there. So we call it the rule of thumb, the 4% rule of thumb. But in essence, looking at this math equation, the other side, it's okay, I have $1 million in liquid net worth. And let's say I'm making no income. Okay. Well, I can pretty reliably pull out 4% of that number every year. And it's actually indexed to inflation, to a smaller inflation, to a 2 or 3% inflation, which is historically accurate, and pull that money out. And in theory, there's a reasonable chance that that money is going to last forever. And with a very, very, very high probability, 30 plus years at the very least. So I think just looking at it like this is when you invest that money in the stock market, and we are humongous fans of low cost, broad based index fund investing. So I would leave you to read the book, The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. I think it's probably the most important personal finance book ever written and will give you a degree of comfort around investing that you've never had before. And that certainly includes myself, who was a CPA who theoretically should have some background with this, but really didn't. And I've never felt better than finishing The Simple Path to Wealth. So low cost index funds, obviously nobody knows the future. Nobody can guess. Don't take anything that I'm saying as financial advice, obviously, because I cannot predict the future. But going on historical returns, it's not unreasonable to expect an 8% annualized return. Okay. So let's say you knew that money was going to return 8% every single year, right? Then in theory, with no inflation, you could pull out $80,000 from that $1 million pot every single year and just spend $80,000 every year and the $1 million would never change. Now, of course, that's not real life, right? Because you can't be certain about the 8% return because some years you're going to get a 25 or 30% return. Some years you're going to get a negative return. That's why we're in this for the long term. Okay. But if you were certain about that, then that would be fantastic. And this would be the easiest thing in the world. But like I said, there's some mitigating factors. You can't be certain in the return. There is inflation. And again, the historical amount is somewhere in the vicinity of, we usually say 3%. So let's say you're expecting an 8% return on average again. You're pulling out 4%. There's 3% to inflation that increases every year. And then you still have 1% to play with that you actually just let continue to compound. So this again is just kind of the way to think about it conceptually. This is not like the hard and fast math of it, but that's why the 4% rule of thumb works to a great degree. And now we've had Karsten, who goes by Big Earn from earlyretirementnow.com, on the show many times. And he has an incredible series for people who are looking to dive into the numbers called the Safe Withdrawal Rate series. And at last check, he had over 60 posts on there. And this is literally PhD level economics. And if you want to dive into that, great. I think what he's said in the past here on the show is barring essential, and I'm paraphrasing, these are my words, but barring a zombie apocalypse, a 3.25% withdrawal rate is going to be successful in virtually every case. So, okay, well, 3.25% it is. If you're the most conservative person in the world, that might mean that you're working extra years needlessly. It might. But if that degree of certainty matters to you, then great. But I mean, again, we're talking a narrow band as opposed to somebody asks you pre-finding FI, hey, can you retire? What do you need? Do you have any idea? Most people look at you with blank eyes. That's what I would have done. I would have had no idea. But having this as a North Star gives you something to shoot for. And you can get into the precision as you get further down the line, if you so choose. I still haven't because it doesn't really honestly matter to me because I know I'm being conservative, because I know I have Social Security coming in under 20 years, and I'm probably being conservative when I calculate my annual expenses and padding it for things that are going to go down. Like, frankly, my life costs more now than it will when I am making $0 because just something that actually benefits. And we're not getting into the politics of this. This is a no politics zone here at ChooseFI, but the ACA, which is where healthcare.gov, where you can get health insurance. When you're making $0 of income, you get a significant subsidy on your premiums every month. Or if you're making close to zero, and there is a lot of nuance to this, but you could potentially pay $0 for your health insurance premiums every month. Whereas for my family of four, I'm paying well over $1,000 a month now. So to calculate my FI number based on my current would actually wildly overstate the amount that I need. So again, I think we build layer upon layer of conservatism into this, which is really unnecessary. But again, anything to get you closer to understanding that this is something you can do. You genuinely can. And you have to take action to make your life better. And I think having that starting place at least sets you on the right path. And I think one of the things a lot of us lament is, oh, I wish I had a personal finance background when I grew up, or I wish my parents told me about this. And I mean, honestly, almost none of us had that. And we've had to learn it on our own, and we've had to learn it with this community. And I think that's one of the best parts is FI to me, and maybe this is the biggest takeaway, is FI is the one reliable way for middle class people to get wealthy. Think about that, right? Like, this is the way that middle class people can get wealthy. Because again, most people are spending every dollar they have and they are living on a knife's edge. And then there are other people, I guess, who rely on getting lucky, or you read about I don't know, Elon Musk in the news, or people who win the lottery. Like, you can't rely on that. You can't rely on just dumb luck. You have to make changes to make your life better. And again, when you reframe saving money from something that is depriving yourself to buying yourself the most important luxury in life, then it just becomes obvious, right? And let's be clear, saving money does not mean cutting. And it certainly doesn't mean solely cutting. let's say. Because I think the honest truth is when you get started, the low hanging fruit, like I look at everything in life in terms of like, what's the highest likelihood of success? Like almost thinking about it like a game of poker. There are probabilistic outcomes to life, and you don't know where things are going to go precisely, but what are the moves that you can make to give yourself the highest likelihood of success in life? Okay. And I think the realistic truth is most of us are spending too much money. Okay. And certainly that's almost undeniably true if we're spending every dollar of income that we have. Okay. At reasonable income levels. You have a spending problem. And it might be real easy to fix. It genuinely might. Like again, small things. Can you cook more meals in? Can you not have a car payment, even if that means it's a couple years from now? Okay. You just bought a new car 2 years ago. Well, you know what? Cars last for 10 to 15 years really, really, really easily these days. Do you absolutely need a new car every 4 or 5 years? Are you truly worried about your safety, or are you just looking to impress people? Okay. Well, instead of buying a new car every 4 or 5 years, buy one every 15 years. That's going to be a multiple hundreds of thousands of dollar decision for every car you do that with in your family. And that's not hyperbole. I have articles to back that up, and it's not worth going into right now, but it's literally hundreds of thousands of dollars because you're taking that money now. You're not frivolously wasting it on something else. You're investing it, right? You're investing it in most cases in low cost, broad based index funds, and you're letting that compound and work for you and becoming a perpetual money making machine, as we called it way back in the day. Because that's what's so amazing about FI is once you get to a certain point, you really can't believe how much money your money is making for you. It's making more money for you than you are at your job in a lot of cases. And that's a wild day when you see that, when your net worth just from sitting there and just growing because the stock market had an average year, not even a great year, just an average year, you're making more than what you earned in your W 2 job or currently are earning, right? And that is really just a wild thing. So truly, FI is that way that we can actually attain wealth. And like I was saying, when you first get started, the low hanging fruit is almost invariably going to be some spending that you just don't need. And I think that again is one of the cool parts about this is you actually can look at life as a game of, wow, how can I live that same life as everybody else, but get wealthy at the same time? And I just found this fun. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's me, but I know a lot of people echo this is once you start making changes and once you start seeing that balance go up and once you start believing that you can do this and it's real, it just keeps snowballing and you just keep going and it becomes more and more fun. Now, obviously, it can veer into too much territory because, again, this is not the let's live in deprivation community. This is the let's live wonderful lives community, right? So if you ever get to a point where you're worried about having a 59.27 savings rate instead of a 59.12, all right, I think you've lost it in the weeds here. But prior to that, it's all right, you can make those changes. You can look for low-hanging fruit. Go through your financial statements, right? You did that as your first step to FI. And hey, go through your credit card bills. Are there things that you're just spending every month on that you're not using anymore? Subscriptions and the like. I know I constantly find these, even though I theoretically should be good at this. It happens. That's life. You don't beat yourself up about it. You just take action to make your life better. And I go through I have like a annual checkup where I basically go through and do a certain number of things, or that's certainly what I aspire to. And certainly looking at my credit card bills for a couple month period is one of those things. And maybe it takes me an hour. I mean, probably not even, but okay, you can find some things to cut. And invariably at the beginning of your FI journey, you certainly can. But it doesn't stop there, right? I think part of the fun of this is, all right, there's a couple sides to this equation. And we always looked at it as it's what you earn minus what you spend equals that difference or the gap. And you can focus on the what you earn side as well, right? So we've had a lot of people come on and talk about ways to increase income. We had Alan Donegan come on way back in episode 30 talking about basically his concept of entrepreneurship and how you can do it without doing all the trappings, the business cards and the business plans and getting a logo and actually trying to see, hey, do I have something here? Can I get people to pay for my product or my service and then go out and build it? And that's just a cool rethink. Two, we had the financial mechanic on multiple times, but originally in episode 211 and Tori Dunlap in episode 147, where they talked about negotiating salary. And if I counted up all the millions of dollars of additional salary that people have earned because they listened to those two episodes and took action and went to their boss or went to their HR department and negotiated that salary, I think it almost certainly is tens of millions of dollars. You can't believe the number of emails that I still get to this day about those two particular episodes. They're game changers. And I think we've talked for a very long time about the talent stack where you can learn new skills. You can synthesize and put together different things where you might not be world class at, but maybe you're in the top 10 or 20%. And by putting that together and building something maybe the world has never seen before, you can build a business or you can earn extra money. I know I did that with my original website, richmondsavers.com, where I basically was one of the very few, I might have been the only person in the world who was a CPA and a travel rewards expert at the time. And I wound up putting together this weird online, offline, hybrid, real world business from my little personal finance blog, Richmond Savers. And it was just like a cool thing that I thought of one day that, oh, wow, I can do this. And honestly, that one decision led to everything that's come since in my life. Travel Miles 101 and then ChooseFI most especially. And it's so interesting when you think differently. And I think that's another hallmark of the FI community and certainly ChooseFI is how can we look at the problem a little bit differently? And I think this is one of the most fun aspects for people who have been in the FI world for a while is there are so many optimizations. There are so many things we can do when you get into it. Do you have to do them? No, but you can if you want. We're going to do some episodes on like advanced FI and is it really that advanced? No, but it's cool things that maybe only exist for the FI community. Tax gain harvesting, something like that, which nobody's ever heard of. Everybody's heard of tax loss harvesting once they've been in the personal finance world for a while. But who actually says, hey, government, I want you to tax me? I'm going to actually harvest gains. Well, people in the FI community might when they have very low income and they might pay $0 of tax on those long term capital gains. That's kind of a cool strategy, right? Like that's something that nobody would ever think of until someone in your community thinks of it, right? The Roth IRA conversion ladder, and we can link up some old episodes that we did about that. This might be a way where you have actually put money into traditional retirement accounts, where again, control what you can control, and you've gotten tax deductions in the current year. Think your regular 401k or traditional IRA, and then you just assume you have to pay tax on it when you pull it out, right? But what if there was a way, because again, you're in the FI community and you think a little bit differently, and your personal finance situation is quite a bit different than most people. Well, what if there's a way to pay virtually $0 in tax when you pull that money out? Even though, again, you say, hey, tax me on this, but because of the rules, you get taxed at 0%, right? Think about all of these things, like I said before, like it or not. And I don't want to get into the ethics of this because, again, it's just you understand the rules of the game. Like it or not, the ACA exists. And I personally think it's wonderful to give people the option, but the ACA exists and there are subsidies when you're at certain income levels. Okay. And if you're making minimal income, you are going to get subsidies. So there's a reasonable chance if you got to FI, let's say, and you had no income coming in, that you're going to get virtually free health insurance, that you're going to be able to pull out all of your retirement money, again, with some nuance of understanding the precise rules of the Roth IRA conversion ladder, but to pull out your retirement money and pay virtually $0 in tax on it, and just additional benefits that we have really built this whole ecosystem over 7.5+ years and have curated the best minds in the FI community. And I think that is why so much of this content is still evergreen. And if you're finding FI today, like I said, go back to the beginning and just start. I guarantee you it's going to be the best free investment of your entire life to go back and listen to these episodes. And I don't say that because I get anything out of it. I don't. Again, we don't have advertising. So It makes no difference whatsoever to me if you listen to those episodes. It doesn't help me, but it helps you. And that's why I'm doing this. That's why I've dedicated my life to this. And really, I mean, this is something that I've put my heart and soul into for almost a decade. And it's because I know how transformative this can be. Okay. This truly is my life's goal and my life's mission is to get you to get up off the couch and to take action to make your life better. Because I know how tantalizingly close it is for you, even if you have no idea. Okay. And if you're just finding us today, the honest truth is you do have no idea, but it's right there waiting for you. This is a life superpower that can change everything. And I know it sounds like I'm talking in hyperbole for the sake of it. I promise you I'm not. Again, we have nothing to sell you. That's one of the, like, you look for incentives in life. Okay. This is one of those secrets of trying to figure out, like, the old ask a barber if you need a haircut kind of thing. Like, you have to look for people's incentives in life. And there's no incentive here. The only incentive is, frankly, I'm financially independent. I don't need to be doing this with my time, but it is what I was put on earth to do. And I've realized that. I know, again, that sounds kind of crazy, but like, this is something that I feel so passionately about because I've seen the emails that I've gotten over the years that number in the tens of thousands of people whose lives have been changed forever for the good. Not because of me, not because of Jonathan, but because they took this information in, which anybody can do. And they got up off the couch and they took action to make their life better, which is the real point of differentiation. That's what it takes, right? Like, the kind of joking thing I've heard is we all have so much information. Like, it should be easy for us to all be billionaires with six-pack abs, right? Well, how many people do you see walking around with either of those? And it's kind of a joke, but it's because information is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's cheap because we treat it cheaply. We treat it like it's worthless. We treat it like it's background noise. For some weird alchemy of me and Jonathan over the years and what we've done somehow inspires people to take action. And I think that's the thing that I personally am proudest of is, again, I'm sitting here in a spare bedroom in Richmond, Virginia, talking into a microphone by myself at this point. And something about this inspires people to take action all across the world. And let's be clear, this is a worldwide movement, right? ChooseFI, since its very humble beginnings in Richmond, VA, has really become the place where people get started on their path to financial independence. And we've built a Facebook community, the main group with well over 100,000 people at this point. We have ChooseFI local groups with meetups, in real life meetups in somewhere in the vicinity of 300 cities in 20 to 30 plus countries all across the world. And people are finding other people like them, people who are looking to make their lives better. And when you find those kindred spirits, you realize, oh, wow, we really have a lot more in common than we thought. And we're not sitting here talking about the weather or politics or the local sports team. I mean, sure, we do some of that stuff every now and again, but we get into it. We get into the nitty gritty and we can be real with each other. And I think that community is so powerful. And you can always find that information at choosefi.com/local. So that gives our list of all of our ChooseFI local groups. And the best way is to just jump in. You can sign up, and obviously it doesn't cost anything, needless to say. I think that should be clear at this point if you've listened this far in the episode. And you can go to the next meetup. It might be something simple like, hey, we're all getting together at the local brewery, or we're going on a hike, or now a lot of local groups are doing case studies where one brave person stands up and presents on their personal finances. And by having it crowdsourced where they have questions and people can help them answer, they can brainstorm. It's remarkable how these case studies have changed the local groups and really revitalized so many of them in the post-COVID era. And yeah, it's just been absolutely amazing, amazing to see. So, I mean, this is a thriving community. We've always said I think it's a Jim Rohn quote of, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I think it's time to level up who those people are. And if I can humbly say, I think I'd love for you to be here and for us to be one of those people, for me to be one of those people where, all right, look, I'm showing up here at least once a week and hopefully more actually in the future. I'm hoping to increase this. And my goal is to provide you information that makes your life better and will help you take action. And like I said, this is crowdsourced. So you'll notice we have mailbag episodes. I try to respond to as many of the emails as I possibly can. I do get overwhelmed and inundated, so that's not entirely possible. But if you go to choosefi.com/subscribe, you can actually get on my newsletter. And this is not like just some typical like newsletter junk. I personally write this every single week, and it's really the companion to the podcast. It's probably more topical because I literally write it probably the day or two before it comes out. And every week I ask people to hit reply and, hey, what was the one action you took to make your life better this week? And then I highlight about 6 of them every single week in that newsletter. So even if you don't read any of the stuff that I write, just to get some inspiration from what your fellow FI community members are doing, I think it's huge. I think it will really give you some ideas and it'll compel you to say, look, all these people all across the world are doing this. I can too. I can too. And the other beautiful thing is that this is not just about the nuts and bolts of money. There's no world where I would still be doing this 650 plus episodes later if this was just talking about money. Like I said earlier, my financial life is maybe the easiest part of my entire life. I have it all on autopilot. And I think once you get through the first couple of months and you're so excited about getting everything down and making changes, obviously you're going to make changes to make your life better in the future and your financial life better. But really, a lot of it is going to be on autopilot. And that's where the fun begins because then you can focus on what matters in life. You can focus on health and fitness. You can focus on relationships. You can focus on giving back to your community or building a business or doing something that you want to do with your life instead of just showing up to an office 40 plus hours a week for the next 40 years. Right. And I think that's where the secret sauce comes in is the money is just a means to get us to the point where we can live the best lives that we want, the lives that we want to live into, the lives we want to design, right? And I think that's why I would love for you to come on this journey. And I'd love for you to be part of the community. So thank you so very much for being here. Thank you for listening. I promise to continue creating the best episodes I possibly can. And I'm going to mix them up wildly from doctors to talk about health and fitness to CFPs who are coming on to talk about advanced FI strategies to some of the nuts and bolts beginnings to travel rewards to meditation to everything to effective giving, right? All of these things that we talk about, it's coming. And I promise you, I'm going to find the best content, the best people I can find. And we're going to keep exploring this road together. So with that, thank you for being here. And to Channel Jonathan, the fire is spreading, my friends.